Sushita.
Welcome, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're located in Decatur, Georgia. Today's event is an international event, which we're super excited for. We got folks coming to you from 3 different time zones. And we're here today to celebrate A Curse of Roses. We are here. Yes, we have a very special guest who you're going to learn more about. I'm actually going to introduce our interviewer first. So Julia Ember is the author of The Seafarer's Kiss duology and Ruinsong. Her work has been featured in USA Today, Bustle, Book Riot, and Autostraddle, among many other prominent outlets. Julia has a lifelong appreciation for history and classic literature and holds an MLit in medieval literature from the University of St. Andrews. She currently lives in Seattle with her wife and 2 very fluffy cats. So we know this is going to be a pretty cat-heavy day, and I hope everybody is turned up for it. We are here to celebrate Diana Pinguicha's new book. Diana is coming to us from the sunny lands of Portugal. She is a computer engineer graduate who currently lives in Lisbon. She can usually be found writing, painting, devouring extraordinary quantities of books and video games, or walking around with her bearded dragon, Roberta. She also has 2 cats, one of whom you've seen, Sushi and Jubis, who would never forgive her if she didn't mention them. So we've been following, Charis has been following your Instagram pages and really enjoying all of the cat costumes, cat situations. So I think folks are going to really get multiple levels of content today.
She's a model.
That face, that's a face that everyone can love. So I want to let folks know who are watching at home. You can shout out where you're watching from. I know that we have Portuguese American folks watching, people watching from Portugal. We're very happy to have everyone here. I also want to let you know that if you have a question you want to ask, either Diana or Julia, you can put it in that Ask a Question area. And finally, you can click this teal button to purchase A Curse of Roses or either of any of Julia's books at any time during the event. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and get out of the way, and we'll get this party started.
Yeah, buy our books so we can feed our cats.
I know. So many cats. So yeah, we're here today to celebrate Diana's amazing debut novel, A Curse of Roses. And I'm going to start with asking some questions. But as ER said, if at any time you have a question, just add it to the box. And we might intersperse some audience questions. We might do them at the end. We'll sort of see how we feel. So start out with, my computer has decided to freeze.
Always the Murphy's Law.
I know.
Murphy's Law.
So A Curse of Roses is based on the legend of a medieval Portuguese saint. What can you tell us about that original hagiography and how it compares to your book? Which elements did you keep and which elements did you change?
So in the original legend, Yzabel, she's married to King Dinis I. And they've been married for a long time because they got engaged at 10 and married at 11. But the marriage was only consummated at 17 because I'm like, people believe out there, girls had the consent clause and there was no such thing as a marriage bed when the bride was 13 or 14, for instance. And she was a very charitable person, and that's the same as in the book. And she wanted to, help out the people who didn't have the means to help themselves. And so she would sneak out of the castle to give bread to the poor. And in one of those trips, her husband was very against this. And one of those trips, she was carrying bread in her skirts, and he caught her and he asked her, Yzabel, what dost thou carry in thy skirts? And she said, well, roses, my lord. And he's like, roses in this weather? Like, you're kidding me? And she was like, yeah, then show me. And then she dropped her skirts and it was not bread, but roses. So a miracle. And then Denise was like, well, obviously this means God is on your side. Yeah, so she's there. God is on your side, and now I need to let you be charitable. So keep on keeping on, Yzabel. And that was the main.
In the middle, like in he actually believed that she was divine. Like
yeah, they all
legend.
believed she was divine. And I mean, I kept much of her like canon personality in the book, and that she was very nice. She cared a lot about other people. She was a hardcore Christian. As in, from a young age, and I read this in one of the biographies, from a very young age, she liked to mortify her flesh and fast a lot. And so my thing in the book is her accepting that those are bad behaviors, and any God worth worshiping does not want you to harm yourself in that way. He wants you to be happy and healthy. And also that it's not a problem if you like girls. Which, like, after Denise died, she retired to a convent. She donated all her stuff and retired to a convent. And I was like, that's the most sapphic thing ever.
It really is. Like sapphic nuns. I feel like that, yeah, was basically...
Which also in the book.
Yeah, also in the book. Yes.
I'm just like, how can I make it more gay? And I just put gay everything.
How to make it more gay, add nuns, for sure, like in historical fantasy. What drew you to the tale in the first place?
So it's my hometown's legend. We have a statue in her honor, and I grew up listening to this story like all the time. There used to be a restaurant called It's Roses. It's since closed, unfortunately. Food was really good there, but it's expensive. And yeah, we have the ugliest statue of her, like ugliest. Even my high school is named after her.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's like a central figure of my hometown, which is Estremoz, which is where half the book takes place and where the miracle happened. A lot of other Portuguese towns will say it was theirs, but that's just
not true.
It happened wherever it happened. It could have happened in all of them. For all we know, like this happened the first time, and then they went around towns doing like a miracle. It's like we have.
Are there any relics that you can still visit in Portugal? Like any like relics or like artifacts that they still have from her?
You can visit her tomb.
Oh wow! Okay.
Where, and this also in the book, her magic is strongest in her left hand and her tongue. And that's because supposedly, if you look into her tomb, like her hand is still whole, like it was preserved, and same for her tongue. Okay. So I decided those were the most magical things in her.
That's wild. Can you, like, if you visit her tomb, can you see? I assume she's in like a stone sarcophagus.
She's in a stone sarcophagus. Yeah. But there's like a place that lets you see. A friend of mine went and took photos of it, and you can see like something that resembles a hand. Okay. Is it a hand? We're not sure, but we like to believe it is.
That's really fascinating. It's so cool that you took a story that was so personal to you and like that you had grown up with and like were able to retell it in such a really beautiful way. And
in my hometown, you can also visit the chapel she liked to pray in and the castle. The castle is still there.
You should do like a photo tour on your blog or something.
There's
like,
one on my Instagram. I need to do a new one because it was like very bad weather. I need to do one in the summer.
Yeah, you could just bring your book everywhere and just like.
Yeah, I went to the church and I was like explaining the things. Like we had like the golden paint, where I was just like, "Here's where we sang "Call the Gold of Brazil." Like useless stuff to make sure she's pretty. And also there's a painting to Saint Yzabel of Hungary, her great aunt, who also did the miracle of roses.
Is there like in Portuguese history and like in legends, are there more saints or figures who are also supposed to have worked with flowers? Like, is that kind of a common motif that you see in Portuguese mythology?
Not in Portuguese, but saints and flowers, girls named Yzabel and flowers, Catholics love them. I know there's one in Hungary, there's one in Portugal, and there's one in Spain.
Oh. And
they're all variations of the name Yzabel.
Okay. And is there any feeling that they might have been the same person, or are they all?
No, they're all like different historical figures.
Wow. So like following on from that first question and the segue we made, the meticulous level of your historical research that went into A Curse of Roses, it was really obvious to me from the first few pages and made the book so vivid and so wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what went into your research process?
So first thing I did, it was interview one of my friend Leonor's parents, because they're history teachers, and it was getting the food down and the customs down, and Leonor's mom even gave me photocopies of some of her books about what the women did. Spoiler alert, it was a lot of sewing and singing, because that's what women did in the Middle Ages. And one of the funniest things was me, like, because at the time I was just doing basic research and asking Leonor's dad, like, so were Yzabel and Denise in love with each other? And he's just like, God, no. Marriages were political between nobility. Like, she was even probably glad that she had so many mistresses, because then he would just leave her alone. And then I was like, okay, that's why she was happy. And so there was that. And then I did read some biographies, like the book on Portuguese queens was really good. A lot of researched articles, like academic papers. I read a lot. One was by, oh my God, it was a professor. I believe her name is Sahar Ahmed. And she wrote about lesbians in medieval times, namely in the Moor times, and how they had the Sahika term, and the Sihaka or Sahika, and the Shak, which was their word for lesbianism, in which they're like, these girls are afflicted by this disease that makes their lady parts hard, and the way to heal it is for them to rub each other. Like, yep, that checks out. And it was passed down because they were being breastfed. Were they being breastfed? If the woman who was breastfeeding you ate certain foods, she would make you a lesbian.
Okay.
And I was just like, maybe that's what we all should be from now on, breastfeeding.
Whatever that
so now,
is.
yeah, if you want your daughter to be a lesbian, just eat some fruits off an orange tree.
Yeah.
Like the flowers from the orange tree. That's a trick.
Wow.
And then there was also
like a handbook we should all read these days.
Yeah. The work of archaeologist Claudio Torres was also hugely important, because I talked about it all the time, how history is taught. It needs to be taught differently for various reasons. But there's archaeological evidence that the Moors were not a homogeneous, I think that's the word, homogeneous Muslim people. They were Muslim in the majority, but they were also Christian and Jewish, because the caliphate did not demand conversion, it only demanded vassalage. And is it that unthinkable that people, like, being under the Christian overlords were being mistreated, and then we're like, well, people in the caliphate are doing much better, maybe we should change allegiances? Like, why is that unthinkable? And it was like, well, I will go with that, because we erased Jewish Moors and Christian Moors of history, because it's easier to think of them as like this enemy, like the alienation of the Islamic people, that it was perpetrated actually much later by King, I believe it was Domanuel I, who was really horny for the daughter of the King of Castile. And the King of Castile was like, well, your kingdom is not solely Christian. If you want to marry my daughter, you need to either kick the Jewish people and the Islamic people, the Muslims out, or you can marry her or force them to convert. And he was like, sure.
Oh, man.
And that's when it mostly started. It was in the 15th century, I think. 14 something.
Yeah, I mean, the research level that you did for this book is amazing. And I think it also, because I didn't know before that this was based on your hometown. And now, like, I can understand, like, how much more, like, how all the little details kind of came into place, because, you live this story and, like, this setting in a lot of ways. And I think that is really apparent in the book. It was great. I also want to talk now a little bit about the romance side of the book. So Yzabel and Fatian have such a beautiful, like, enchanting, slow burn love story. I just loved it. Without giving everyone too many spoilers, what was your favorite romantic scene to write? Like, I know what mine was as a reader, but I wonder what yours was to write.
I love most of them, but the one at the springs was my favorite. It was like the buoyancy, like the floatage of certain lady parts. They were just like, yep, this checks out. That was my reaction the first time I saw it.
Yeah, for the readers that haven't read the book yet, there is a wonderful scene in which both of the girls go to a magical spring, and Yzabel is basically transfixed with how well Fatian's boobs float. And as I was reading it, was like, is she gonna go there? Like, is she gonna go there? And I was actually DMing with one of your editors with like the little eyes emoji, and like about to go there. Is she gonna do that? And I was like, yes, she is. So it was great. Like I loved that scene. It was so beautiful. And
yeah, those springs actually exist.
Have you been there?
They were closed.
Okay.
But I've been on the outside. They've just been restored, and you can now go there and take baths. Say from the Roman times.
Okay.
So yeah, they did build some things made to last. There's gem.
And is there any kind of like local legend at all about those springs, like having certain magical properties?
Yeah, they're supposed to be magical, but also apparently like earlier Middle Ages and until perfume was invented, basically, unlike popular belief, people bathed regularly because they believed healthy body, healthy mind. And yeah, so they would bathe. People would not just have the one yearly bath back then. They would actually go to the springs quite often and wash themselves. Yeah, Diana's saying, the other Portuguese Diana, saying Portugal is made of legends. They're everywhere. Yep. Because we are so old. We're such an old country. We just make legends out of everything.
That was one of my favorite parts of living in Scotland too. It's just like there's so much history everywhere in Europe, and like people have there's so many layers of legends from like different people that have lived in spaces, and it's so fascinating how they influence one another over time. So one of the other fascinating elements of A Curse of Roses for me was how you balance, and you talked about this a little bit, but I was wondering if we could delve a little bit more into it, which is how you balanced Yzabel's like strong Catholic faith with her feelings about her emerging sexuality. That to me, like in this book, was a really unique point of it, and it felt real and really historically nuanced to me. How did you achieve this balance in your writing?
So it was a bit like thinking of how I was at a very young age, being raised in the very same environment, versus me now, and knowing what I know, because the way people teach the Bible, it's very focused on the bad things and not enough on our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm an atheist, by the way, but I was raised hardcore Catholic, and Jesus was basically like, just love each other, it's fine. And so a lot of it was Yzabel realizing that people are having her focus on the wrong parts of the Bible. And also so much has been changed and lost in translation that, of course, like interpretations will change. Like Fatian's interpretation, she too was a Christian more. She also was like, she was taught differently, because to the Moors, lesbians were like no big deal. They were just fine. And so I knew I wanted her to, because I could not make her an atheist like I ended up becoming, because she was so devout and it would have been a disservice to her character. So I wanted her to conciliate both and accept herself and all that she is, and also while with her faith, which is possible. People were just like, oh, but in the Old Testament, no, that's not what Jesus died for. Jesus died so we would forget the Old Testament and go by what he said, which is, let's be friends, love each other, and love is the ultimate commandment. Quoting my own book.
Well, I mean, it was really beautifully done, and I think
thank you.
The way that you researched like all the different like components of Yzabel's faith too was really fascinating to me.
Also, lesbian nuns.
Lesbian nuns, yes. I mean, I wish that there were even more books about lesbian nuns, just everywhere.
Disappointing that there aren't.
There are not many. Like, I'm actually struggling to think about, if anyone in the comments knows any other books about lesbian nuns, like, please tell us, because I would read them.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Because where else would women go if they were not attracted to men and wanted to be left alone?
Yeah, exactly.
Married to Christ, sorry.
Yeah. I'm sure that there were a lot of antics that went on. Oh, there is, in fact, an old anthology, Lesbian Nuns. That's awesome. All of us will have to check that out.
Well, yeah, we'll have to read it.
Uh, so who was your favorite character to write and why? Of all
My
of your
favorite, yeah, of all of them, it was British.
Okay.
Because Britis was just like this old badass mentor who would both call you out and give you a hug. That she was very patient with Isabel, but also, oh my God, girl, I've been telling you this for years now, and then comes the hot lady, and you, yeah, that's fine. Like, girl. Yeah, so she was like basically me trying to talk Isabel out of her nonsense. And I had a lot of fun. She was a fun character to write. My second one was Denise. And it took a while because in the earlier drafts, he was much bigger asshole.
Okay.
And everyone was like, you should just kill him off. I was like, wait, I don't think I can because he was actually a pretty nice king.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like a book where all the guys are villains.
Well, and it's hard if you have a historical book and you're trying to sort of stay like sort of within the timeline. Like it would have been a big departure if you just like killed off the king.
Killed off the king and have Fatih pass off as him.
Yeah.
But no, I did not do that. But it took some revising to like have him be more decent. Because he would be a huge privileged guy. Because when you're raised to be king, people won't say no to you because you're going to be king. And so it was a lot of him being frustrated with Isabel because she said no. Like, you want me to do this? No. It was like, how dare you contradict me? She was like, no. Yeah, so in the end, like, but he had to be attenuated a bit. But I like how he came out in the end.
He has a good character arc. Like he does sort of come around. And I think like his like you do kind of understand reading it that like his motivations for like trying to get her to eat and stuff like are fairly pure. You know, like he just is sick of seeing her like waste away, which is a good thing. On the flip side of that question, who was the hardest? Or like your least?
He was by far the hardest because of the balance I had to strike. So yeah, he was like one of my favorites, but also one of the hardest. But also the dog. The dog is great. Lucas is great.
Yeah. Have you ever had a big dog like that? I know you're very committed to your cats now, but
yeah, unfortunately, I never had a big dog. I only had teeny tiny dogs that we rescued. They just showed up. But one of my dad's friends has Alentejo Mastiffs, and I love them so much because they're so big and also so lazy and also so hyper when they want to and very protective. And I love her. Like the one that I grew up with that one of my dad's friends, her name was Migas. And she would you could not get into the farm like late at night. She would not let you, but like during the day, she would also just come and like lay her paw on your leg and ask you for food and then just sleep around most of the day. The one they have now is just insane.
So A Curse of Roses is your debut novel. What tips do you have for any other writers listening to this, especially for those with books coming out next year in 2021 for facing their debut years?
Our debut year sucked.
2020 was rough, for sure.
Thanks, COVID. So yeah, it was rough. But if anyone has a debut year next year, tell me because I'm going to the US and we can all do a joint tour. Like we missed out last year. Let's just party together. My advice for writers is to just keep going, which I know it's hard, especially this was my 7th book and I was just ready to be over and done with. Just gonna publish stuff on Wattpad from now on, etc. Because it was hard and carrying it was hard and nightmare. But ultimately, it's all about persistence and practice. Because each book you write will make you a better writer, inevitably. And that's just it. Just keep going. And if you're wondering what you should write about, find something that it's unique to you. What is an experience or a legend that you heard that no one else probably did? Because when I talked about the legend of my hometown, my American friends were like, "Oh, that's so interesting. I never knew about that." And then I was like, "Should I maybe do a book about this?" Because there was nothing like this out there, and I knew I wanted to do a retelling, but everyone was doing, Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella, etc. And I was like, maybe I should do something Portuguese. And well, what about my hometown's legend?
You maybe want to tell. So right before we went live, we were talking a little bit about like the publishing atmosphere in Portugal, which I think is also sort of relevant to this question. Like, do you want to tell people sort of what your pre-publication process was like, maybe a little bit, like how you tried to go through the Portuguese system maybe, or didn't, or what the experience was like querying as an international author?
I didn't even try, because I knew I had like what the Portuguese publishing industry calls the unholy trinity, in that my book is queer, and my book is YA, and my book is fantasy, which is like 3 strikes against me. Meanwhile, if a foreign author had written this, they would have snapped up the rights. And if anyone's listening, yes, you would have. Probably not. But so I started maybe writing seriously with the intent of publication at around 23. And at the time I did look into it, but then I talked to some more people who had already tried, and we don't have agents here. You submit directly to publishers, and unless you're a known celebrity or one of their house authors, good luck getting read, or unless you know someone in there, good luck getting read. And then there's also this overwhelming, like, what's the word? Oh my God, my bilingual brain. It's not like a problem, but that's a visible difference in how women writers are treated and non-binary writers versus men. Everything a guy does is met with applause. Everything we do is just like, what little success we have, it's about meeting quotas, apparently. And like I said, a bunch of people that I know about the book and would otherwise congratulate the guy have not even bothered to extend their congratulations for being an internationally published author. So yeah, it's a bummer. So I didn't even try, like, why bother? And because I've written in English for so long now, I just like might as well. And my experience querying it was not in the beginning, like some 10 years ago, not 10, 8, 7. It was a bit harder because a lot of places only took snail mail still.
Oh yeah.
And you had to include the sazu, which we cannot include because there's no international sazu. Oh, kitty.
Yeah.
Kitty. But yeah, I had people telling me, like, I just don't see how a Portuguese author can have an English good enough to write it. I was like,
so frustrating, like so xenophobic.
And I know my writing, my voice, it's different than an American's or a Brit's. And I think that also counted as strikes against me because people are not used to the Portuguese way of writing and our stylistic choices and word choices and everything. And just because you're not used to it does not mean it's bad. And I think this is a problem from, native English speakers not reading a lot of translations. And meanwhile, we grew up on translations because not a lot of Portuguese authors get published, especially in fantasy. So translations, ahoy. So your cat just like put himself or herself behind you. He's just like staring into the distance. That's so cute.
A magnificent cat.
Oh, I love the socks and the little shirt.
You're a magnificent cat. You want to hold the book up? Everyone can see it.
He's just gonna knock it down.
He probably is, but right now he's very posed and perfect.
He's reading. So. He's reading.
Good. There you go.
Come on, boy, read. Read us about the springs.
So we have a couple of audience questions that we can maybe delve into because they actually relate to sort of what we've been talking about right now. So the first one is, you talked about the sexism you experience in the publishing industry. Can you tell us what kinds of feminist and queer activism you do see happening in Portugal?
What do I see happening in Portugal that's feminist? The Women's March? There's just not a lot happening, and every time we do, we're just, can I swear? We're just, we're just badly fucked women who are frustrated that no man has ever looked our way whenever we try to speak up. And I mean, I try, and every time someone starts talking about how N.K. Jemisin's books suck, first of all, I will stab a bitch.
Yeah.
That. And how they're boring.
People say that in Portugal. They're amazing books.
They are, and I will die for them. Yeah, so that she just won the Hugo because they now need to meet quotas, and it's stacking the deck against white male authors, and I'm just what, dude? What reality do you live on? What acid are you taking? Because I want some of that, but no. And yeah, so I do see some smaller publishers, independent ones, like Imaginalta and Divergência. They try to bring more diversity. Imaginalta did a queer anthology, which is great. If you read in Portuguese, you should get Imaginalta's queer anthology. But aside from that, it's just not much. They do try, but it's hard. It's hard out there.
Is YA much of a market in Portugal?
If you're international, maybe. If you're an American and so for instance, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda? We only got to translation when the movie came out.
Okay.
Because then a movie had been made. And I was just oh shit. Yeah, you guys are so transparent, but a lot of it is just whatever's popular in the US is what gets picked up here. And in terms of YA, it's just I'm not aware of YA Portuguese authors. We have some middle grade called Aventura. We had Triângulo J, which I loved. All the characters' names started with J. And it had some truly effed up stuff going on in those books. Yeah, Diana's helping me out, though there are no current YA authors working in Portugal. There are middle grade ones, and its rest is just adult. Okay. But we do lump YA and adult together.
Okay.
But there's no YA equivalent even in the adult section with Portuguese authors.
I hope that when you can come to the US, hopefully next year, because hopefully COVID will have.
We'll be vaccinated. He will be free here.
Well, I'm sure you're able to meet some YA authors, and meet people in person and experience the in-person excitement for your book.
It's just the publishing situation in Portugal. It's depressing, y'all. It's just.
So we have another audience question, which is, can you share a little bit about how you think about writing historical fiction and how much you worry about anachronisms in the first draft?
Anachronisms are inaccuracies.
Yeah, and little details.
In first drafts, not so much. Sometimes I just put / date or / place or / word for this. And then I went looking, because I also went into looking what kind of words would be available. So any words that were invented after the 15th century, because that's how late as it goes, I would not use in the book unless I absolutely had no choice. For instance, the word lesbian, I do not use it. It didn't exist. But it only went as far back as the 15th century, so I had to do some rules, Latin-based words will be fine no matter what, because Portuguese is based off Latin. And I did take some liberties. But I knew the liberties I took, and it was all stuff that would eventually be Portuguese anyway, or Dennis's age had to be changed. But yeah, I think I have maybe some inaccuracies, but I'm not too bothered because it's fiction.
Yes.
It's fiction. It's not it's a historical fantasy, and fiction. It's not like a full-blown historical novel with academic footnotes. So don't go to this looking for a history lesson. There are some nice historical details, but not a history lesson. I'll say hi.
Hello. Hello to people joining us. Yeah, so you just mentioned, and I thought it was interesting, how like when you're writing your manuscript and you leave like slashes to yourself, like to make a note to write something later.
Sorry, Julia, my very best friend in the whole world just joined. Dana, I miss you so much, baby. Oh my God. I miss you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's really nice. Hi, Dana. So you mentioned that you use like a backslash in order to like find details, like put things in later. Overall, when you're drafting, do you draft linearly? Like, do you start at the beginning and like kind of work your way to the end, or like how? Can you tell us a little bit about your drafting process?
The first thing I wrote in this book was the ending. Like, it was the Miracle of Roses, because I knew that was going to be in the book, and I knew pretty much how it was going to go. So I did that, but I usually do an outline. Okay. And then halfway through, you find out the outline doesn't work. That always happens for some reason. Like, it looks good in an outline, does not flow well in the book, because Yzabel was taking forever to learn the magic, and I knew she had to like learn it so she could turn flowers into food. So I wrote all over the place. I write all over the place because that's a lot of the ending remained the same. A lot of the beginning had to be scrapped and redone so many times. But once I get the beginning and the end, then it's just a matter of figuring out the middle for me. Because for some reason, I always know how my books are going to end.
Yeah, start and end. I mean, the middle chunk is the hardest. It
is.
Yeah.
And like, am I taking too long on this? And then I had some great feedback from Carly Heath, who has a book coming out next year called The Reckless Kind. Everyone needs to check it out. It's out by Soho Team. And she's the one who suggested the ritual to speed things along. And I was like, you know what? That makes sense. I can make that work.
Oh, so someone's asked a question in the comment box too. So Jose has asked, so you wrote the end, then the beginning, and then you let your characters figure out how it all fit together. Is that how it went for you?
Yeah. Sometimes they take a life of their own. Even though like Yzabel was a real historical figure and her personality, I went by the historical version of her. Fatian took the reins. It was just like, no, we need to get this done. Yzabel, one back. It was singular. I love that trope. I had to. And again, people would be like, they're two girls sleeping in the same bed. What could happen? Nothing. Girls don't feel any desire at all. Girls are not attracted to each other. They're incapable of that.
Yeah, I think it was common. It was very common for girls to sleep in the same bed until like the start of the 20th century, really.
Yep. Yeah. And also, if you were like a commoner family, everyone slept in the same bed to conserve body heat. This makes sense because houses were drafty and cold. And so the entire family just slept in one bed. Yeah, mom and dad are doing something next to us.
That is, yeah. So I think Diana is going to do a short reading, but to everyone who is in the audience, I want to prompt you also to ask your questions either in the comment box or in the questions and answer section. And once Diana's read, then we will delve back into audience questions.
Wait, I have some questions to ask you, Julia.
Yeah, you can go for that too.
We can go, yeah, because I want to know about, so you had the song.
I did have a song
for your book that I absolutely loved. It's a lovely song. And you collaborated with Tara Trudeau. Yes. I'm saying her name right. How was that?
So, Ruinsong, my book that just came out, we did do an original song. And it kind of happened by accident. So Tara Trudell, I think in like either the end of 2018 or like the beginning of 2019, I can't remember what the exact date was because it's been 2020, which has been like 500 years, put an auction item up for one of the charity book auctions that was like to do a music accompaniment to someone's book. And I was at the time I was like, okay, I have a musical book coming out. I don't really know what this means or like what I will use it for, but like this seems like something maybe I should bid on. So I did, and I won. And so then Tara contacted me and was like, oh, like, what are you thinking? And like at the time, I kind of imagined that like by like a musical accompaniment, it was going to be like, I don't know, like 3 bars of song or something like that. Like not this like huge, like actual like feature length song. But then when we started talking, she was like, oh no, like I have all these ideas. And I was like, oh wow, this is going to be like an actual like real song. And so we originally started, she read a couple of excerpts of Ruinsong. We had like a working Google Doc that we were going back and forth on for like themes, words, like chorus lines, things like that. And then sort of once we had all the themes and we had like a lot of the motifs for the song, we just kind of like went away and like created magic. And like she sent me a few snippets, like I gave her a little bit of feedback on a few areas, but yeah, she just came back with this like amazing full-length song, which was totally not what I was expecting when I bid on the item, but I was completely delighted by it.
Yeah, I listened to it. It is amazing. I love the piano that goes with it. And everyone should give it a listen. It's a really beautiful song. And Tara has a beautiful voice.
She does have a beautiful voice. She's so talented.
And so Ruinsong, it's a retelling of the Phantom of the Opera. So what drew you to the Phantom?
And so I grew up in London, which has a lot of theater. And when I was in high school, my parents initially would take us to go and see like various West End productions. And Phantom was the one that I like really fell in love with, like to the point that I used to take like the train in with friends, and then we would go to like the last minute ticket booth and like buy the worst seats, like the ones which are like, you know, they were like 10 pounds or something like that because you were sat like behind a pillar and couldn't actually see the stage, but you could hear the music. And like since I had seen it before, I was still able to enjoy it. But I absolutely loved going to the theater. And then when I was in college, I read the book version of The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and I loved that too. And I think like a lot of it was the aesthetic of like the opera hall, like all these like grim and kind of grisly murders that were taking there that kind of captivated my attention initially. But then I also loved the romance between Christine and Raoul. Like I loved the friends, to our childhood friends to lovers arc. I loved like how dedicated he was to her. And from that kind of came up with this loose retelling of The Phantom of the Opera. Like I would say that A Curse of Roses, like from everything you've described, seems like it's much more faithful to like your source material. Whereas I think Ruinsong is quite a big departure. Like there are some similar motifs. Like there's a masked villain, but I
do love that you call the Phantom the villain. Because that's one of my huge problems with people in Phantom of the Opera. It's them romanticizing the Phantom. He was an abuser.
He was an abuser, and he was also like a murderer. You know, he's a murderer, he's an abuser.
Yeah,
like,
so I was just like, oh my God, yes. Julia's like a rebel girl. Yeah.
Alina, the queen in this book, is definitely all of those things. I think like she is abusive. She is a murderer in a lot of instances. She's a tyrant, and she rules her kingdom, I think, in the same like kind of tyrannical way that the Phantom was trying to run the opera hall in the book. So yes, definitely the villain there.
Yeah, first time we were in New York, Dana and I went to see the Book of Mormon, and we also got the crappiest seats because they were the cheapest and all we could afford.
Sometimes those seats are great though. Like, I mean, you don't see a lot if you're behind a pillar, but the experience of like musical theater is still there.
Love Never Dies. Yeah, Love Never Dies is a good song, but it's still an abusive relationship.
Yeah, I think that was one problem I had with the film version of Phantom of the Opera too, because like Gerard Butler is a very attractive person, and like I think that the way that he portrayed the Phantom was almost like it's kind of like a gentler version of the Phantom than what you see in either. I mean, definitely a gentler version than you see in the book, and than in the theater production. So I think that he kind of made the Phantom out to be more of a romantic figure than he is.
I'm just like, should I go read the excerpt of The Springs? Because we've been talking about the Springs so much. The buoyancy of breasts.
Yeah, you should read The Springs.
Oh yeah. I opened it right on the. No, it's before that. It's before this. Oh yeah, found it. Haha. Isabel sat with her back to the wall, head leaning on the warm stone. It does. Closing her eyes, she soaked in the springs, let the warm waters ease away the weariness. Yet the restlessness in her limbs refused to settle, and the thoughts running through her head found their way back after she tried to lay them to rest. The magic inside her twirled in every direction, tugging at her fingers and toes, spreading numbness on her tongue. Under the water, Isabel fisted her hands, fighting for control. The effort lined her face with a grimace, had her eyebrows trembling and her muscles spasming. A drop landed on her cheeks, startling out of her trance. She opened her eyes to see Fatian playfully kicking the water next to her face. I have an idea, she said with an impatient arc. Isabel closed her eyes so as not to fall into the temptation to steal another glance at Fatian's breasts, which she was clearly aware was an odd, boring fixation, but they floated. Larger breasts were capable of floating. She had never expected them to be so buoyant. It's like, this cracks me up every time. I can't believe I wrote this. Cracks me up every time. Oh, should I keep? I can't believe it. I have zero shame, Jen. Like, I'm not afraid. I'm like so extra. I'm like, shame. What is shame anymore? Yep.
I couldn't believe what I was reading. The fame. I was like, wow. Like,
the famed lesbian massage.
I really was like, oh, is she really going there into like floating breast territory? And yet, like, it's totally something that you notice about people with large boobs. So
I did, like, the first time I saw it, I was like, what? Because, like, I don't have much in this department, so mine just do that, do their thing, and just. And that, when the first time I saw them in the water, I was like, what? Wait. It's like a bag of water, a bag of air. It's amazing.
It's like a flotation device. It really is. Like if you were ever in trouble, you could survive a shipwreck using them.
You could technically survive a shipwreck by like waiting for a body to bloat and then cast wreck away.
Sure, but I think it's probably faster to float on your chest if that's possible.
Yeah.
Like, I think it probably takes a day or two for a body to bloat in the water.
Yeah, it is a long time.
I don't know though. Yeah. So we have another audience question, which is: there's a lot of stigma attached to non-native speakers and their skill at creating art in a language not their own. How does it feel to triumph as a writer who is non-native? What manner of prejudice have you experienced in the wake of people's realization that you are not native?
Is there a triumph? So a lot of stigma. People tag me in reviews where they complain that I use words that aren't used anymore, and I'm like, it's a medieval book. It's on purpose. And how I use weird phrasings like Isabel using rod of meat to refer to a penis, and I was just like, it's on purpose. She's like, it's supposed to be awkward.
Yeah, I think like when I read that, I was like, it sounds like something she's kind of a little bit repulsed by, which is what she is. Like, she's a little bit repulsed by it. So,
and also people not getting why I write a certain way. And also this after people telling me that I would never have English good enough to write a whole book. And that was just not possible. And this was in college. This was like an asshole in college. And game development. Another level. And I also this happened in my earlier manuscript, where I had an editor reject it, and she pointed out awkward phrasings and quoted it. And then I read a book she edited and had those very same awkward phrasings, like word by word. I think I was using the fingers with which she was holding And she pointed that out as awkward. And then I saw it in one of the books she edited, and I was just like, maybe
I think that's pretty a common phrasing.
Yeah, so I was just like, you know, you could have just rejected it without pointing out these things that you do let your authors do. And another thing, so when a native speaker uses certain words, they're poetic and beautiful. When I do, it's because I went to a dictionary and learned them from it. Like, first of all of us learn second language from a dictionary. That's how you find out what words mean. Second of all, I haven't used a dictionary to like do that in years. Because I'm sorry, I'm good at English. It's my one thing. I can be proud of this. And that's just offensive to suggest that we as non-natives will never be good enough and that we need dictionaries to do this and do that, when our choices are purposeful and very intentional.
Well, and I think even if you do
really angry.
You use a thesaurus. Like I use a thesaurus sometimes too, and I'm like looking through my manuscript and I'm like, oh, like this word, like it conveys what I mean, but it's like not the right word. And like native speakers use thesauruses and like word, resources all the time. I don't know why that would be something.
Also, a lot of double standards. I'm sure you've noticed this, but when you write like lesbians, and oh my God, it's insta love. Where there's the difference between insta love and instant attraction. It's different. You can instantly feel attracted to anyone, unless asexual people not. But I didn't write an asexual character, which fine. But there's a difference between that. And also, when a white author writes a character-driven novel, it's amazing. And people don't care there's no plot. Meanwhile, I do that, and people accuse me of having no plot. Which I do. I do have a plot, I swear.
You have a plot.
There's like a plot in this. So yeah, just also, people are a lot more forgiving in actual insta-love in straight characters than in queer characters.
That is definitely something that I've noticed. Like it's okay in like a heterosexual romance book for the main character to be like instantly like, oh my God, he's so hot, like and be a little bit obsessed. Whereas like in a queer romance, that's not something that people react well to.
And I'm sorry, Fatih is super hot. Why wouldn't Yzabel be instantly attracted? I'm like, this is like for Charis bookstore. I like personalized a bunch of these. So now I'm looking for a portrait of Fatih. So yeah, this shows up in front of you. Are you not instantly attracted to her? Like, I'm sorry. She's hot.
She is hot.
Women feel sexual attraction too. Like,
yeah, I always wonder if it's partly that, like a kind of, I don't know, among the readers, like a little bit of an internalized misogyny against like women's sexualities and like the expression of them. You know, that people just still believe that like women don't have like this instant like magnetic attraction.
I think it definitely is that, and we're almost infantilized in a way, and I talk about this all the time, in that we do not feel, same sex. We do not want sex the same way men do, and that's not necessarily true. And we also can look at a woman and be like, oh God. Women also have lesbian one-night stands. I'm sorry, it happens. Like, it's not just men. Women want the sex. Well, I never, right? Right? Never.
Well, from our audience, do we have any more questions that anyone wants to ask?
For like the 5 people here. Hello, Sushi. Do you want to come say hi again? No, she's asleep. She's like a little corner of it. Look at her.
Oh.
She's so tiny.
She's much more like demure than my cat. My cat's just been like all over the place. I can hear him like running up and down the stairs and.
Yeah, a very puritanical view of human sexuality. It is indeed. It's just, and I was writing this, and a lot of the things I was like, wait, this still happens now. Like, oh my God, we have evolved very little from the Middle Ages in regards to how we regard women and sexuality. And also, I think it's more recent that the strong female character needs to be this badass woman warrior. And that's not necessarily true either. Like, you can be strong and you can be soft. Because I think there's a lot more strength in being forgiven and opening your heart up to harm again and again than someone who just doesn't care but wields a sword.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's been some movement, like in the last, I don't know, 12 to 18 months. There have been more female protagonists who have been like strong but not sword wielders, which is a development that I've been really happy to see, because I love like a good like hack and slash sword book like as much as anyone.
I mean, I love Arya Stark, but I also loved Sansa. Sansa, I'm sorry, she did the best with what she had, which was she could only resort to diplomacy. People think her as weak, but the girl survived the most abusive little boy king ever. And she played her hand well. And there's
she's so impressive by the end of that series. She is one of my favorite characters. The ending of that series left lots to be desired, but Sansa...
Her being Queen in the North was fine. I was like, this is like the best part. Like, I like Arya, but I also like Sansa, and a lot of internet misogynoirs love harping on Sansa for just being there. And she's like scheming and doing her best to survive with very little. Because all she has are her wits. And those count.
I think we have one more audience question, which is, can you share your favorite authors or contemporary influences?
My favorite author, like currently, it's always been for a while, it's Juliet Marillier. And I still haven't read her new book because I've been reading all the arcs because I want to get it over with. But I fell in love with her writing since the Seven Waters books. And I've loved every one of her books. She can do no wrong to me. I love Annie Jemisin. I've read all her books. I loved all her books. I got, because I read, like when you read a lot and you're like, oh my God, it's coming up from, oh my God, Sadie by Courtney Summers wrecked me, like completely.
Oh, I haven't read that yet.
Oh my God, it is so good. Like there's like part podcast, part first person narration, and I read it in under a day. It trashed me.
Okay, I will have to read it. So many people have told me it's really good, so I need to add that to my TBR.
Everyone needs to read Legendborn too, because I loved it and I'm obsessed with it. And our Lord and Savior Brie Matthews is coming here to rescue the scene, and also these Violent Fights, which just came out. It is so good. Like,
I just got that. I haven't read it yet though, but I just bought it, so I'm like, yes.
It was part of my arcs that I needed to read.
Yeah.
And oh my God, like I was just saying this in the other event that I did with Maggie Tokuda Hall, but Juliet can step on me. And I loved Leah Johnson's You Should See Me in a Crown. Like perfect modern fairy tale retelling, like Cinderella. And I was just like happy crying. Like, I'm so proud of you, Liz. I cry a lot when I do whatever. Like sometimes I break a glass and I cry over the glass I just lost and now need to replace. Let's see, who else do I like? I read so much and now it's just drawing up a blank.
It's so hard. Like whenever people ask me this question, I almost have to like swivel around and like look at
I'm
my
not like picturing my bookshelves.
Like recently that's there.
Picturing my bookshelves and Susan Dennard. I love Susan's books. I love Susan. Susan's like an amazing, generous person, and everyone needs to read The Witchland. But also, I really enjoyed her earlier series with steampunk zombies.
Yeah, I did too.
So underrated.
I'm glad that Paranormal is coming back in YA. Like, I'm really ready, like, for more zombies and like more vampires and more werewolves and stuff to come back.
Because a bunch of straight white people did the same story over and over, and then when diverse writers try to do it, oh no,
it's over.
It's over. Like, but why can we have 50 retellings of white straight Cinderellas and not, 50 queer ones? Why? Explain this to me. Same with vampires. I'm sorry, the life of a black vampire would be so much different than a white vampire.
It would be fascinating as well.
And I need black authors to write that because I want to read it. I'm not gonna do it, obviously. Like, someone needs to write a black vampire story because I wanna see how it would be different.
I think that there are a few in the
works.
In this one.
Yeah, I know vampires never get old.
Yeah, I think it is cool in Vampires Never Get Old.
I want the full novel.
This is another one that I'm like, it's like imminently on my TBR pile and I need to read.
Oh my God, Zach's pointing out like the popularity of Highlander fiction. Like so many Scottish stories. Like, give us a black Scottish story.
There are.
Oh yeah, Diana. So
Highlander fiction.
Diana Souza, who's in the chat, the other Portuguese Diana. She did the character cards for Vampires Never Get Old. Oh. Yeah, we're Portuguese people are all very talented, especially the Dianas.
Yes.
Yeah, like to her, I'm the other Portuguese Diana. But yeah, oh, we have Priory. Priory was also a good one.
It was good. It was really good. I was like intimidated to read it before I started because it's so enormous. It's like the size of a huge book, or like a huge brick. Like
it's a legit weapon.
It is a weapon. Like you could genuinely kill someone with Priory of the Orange Tree. But like once I started reading it, it was amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
Like oh my God! Because
we have one more audience question. It looks like. Are there any other saints that you would write about?
Wait, sorry, you're gonna have to repeat that because I just read in the chat Diana saying I heard people got stopped at the airport because of Priory. The scans couldn't see what it was in the suitcase.
Like, because you can kill someone. It's like 5 or 6.
God.
Like, it's enormous.
Amazing. I love this. Sorry. It happened several times to people leaving y'all see. This is beautiful. Like getting stopped, just a book. Yeah, I did get stopped at the airport in Vegas because I had a suitcase full of books after RT. And he just had to look through all the books to make sure I wasn't smuggling anything. And the guy was like, you know, there's a thing called a Kindle, right? I was like, yeah, but those are signed.
I know. I've had that before. The first time I went to BookCon, that my suitcase, I didn't get stopped, but my suitcase was like 10 pounds overweight. And so I had to like open my suitcase and then stick like 10 extra pounds of books into my hand luggage and then just like
I bought a carry-on just for books.
Yeah.
Because my suitcase was it was already like close to the weight when I was getting there because I need new outfits for every day. I'm like the person who's like constantly showing up in different dresses. But yeah, what was the last question? Sorry.
So the last audience question was, are there any other saints that you would write about?
Not saints, per se. I would write about, because I've been reading about Leonor Teles, which was the last queen of the First Dynasty in Portugal. And she was, I believe, done so dirty in history to make King Afonso I sound better than he was. That she was cunning, she was ambitious, she wasn't afraid of poisoning people. And she supposedly had many affairs and was this horrible woman. But when I read that, my mind goes, was she though? Or was it like King John's scribes trying to like make it sound that he was the better option? Because in the short time she was regent, she made the kingdom better for the commoners. Yeah. She improved it for like the farm workers and lower end people. But oh no, she's like has friends who were from Castella. Serfs? Yeah, serfs. Friends who were from Castella. Oh no, she's giving us to the Castellans again. No. But then, when the king of Castella, who was married to her daughter, and their son was supposed to be the next king of Portugal, that was a treaty that King Fernando signed. When he tried to take Portugal, she tried to poison the king of Castella as well, to the point that her daughter was like, Mom, in like a year, you tried to make me a widow, an orphan, and like countryless.
I mean, she sounds like a bit of a legend, to be honest. Like an amazing person. So
yeah, I was like, I wanted to do the Baker of Algebra, which is another legend they have of the woman who was a baker, and during the Battle of Algebra, where Castella was invading Portugal during that crisis, she whacked the Spaniards with a paddle and then put him in her oven. Or they were asleep in her oven and she whacked them. But now I'm like, Leonor Teles was just queen, like literal queen. I need to write about her. So yeah, and I also wanted to write about the 25th of April revolution. It's called the Carnation Revolution, and it's when we supplanted the dictatorship with a largely Pacific coup. And there were 4 deaths, but they were only at the end because the fascist assholes decided to, like, they were cornered, no chance of winning, and they decided to fire. That's when people died. And it was more on their side. But yeah, we did that. And soldiers would carry carnations in their guns, and no shots were fired until that. So bullets to carnations or something like that.
Oh, that'd be fun. That'd be really good. And really in keeping with your
yeah, keeping with the flower theme.
Yeah. Which kind of segues me really well into the last question I had for you, which was what's next effectively? Like, what are you working on? What can we look for from you?
10,000 things I'm working on because of ADHD brain. I'm revising an older novel that I have because my editor really liked it. And it's the one with like chaotic pansexuals with mental illness save the world.
Awesome.
And there's like someone with mind powers, and of course she's been used. Like, once you have mind powers and you can control minds, how would you not use it to take over the world? So she's being used for that, and it's like a whole thing. And then she meets a girl. She also meets a boy. She meets a girl who's like completely like, well, I can use this term because I'm mentally ill. She's completely bananas. And she's like chaos personified. And then she's like, well, maybe I should join her because she seems to be like scarier than the guy who can literally control all the minds put together.
That's pretty talented to be scarier than the person with like actual
mind powers, magical mind powers. And then because I want to work on the one I have inspired by the Chapel of Bones in Evora, where it's just a bone chapel. It's literally bones are walls, bones are the ceiling, bones are the floor, bones everywhere. And I want to do that and mix it with the matrafonas or marafonas, which is a doll in Alentejo that we have that has no face.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be like during a party, girls will make them and hope for a fiance or whatever. But I want to have like these girls who are actually faceless until they eventually grow a face according to whatever eldritch horror blesses them, kind of.
Yeah, awesome.
And I want it to be very cosmic horror hideousness. I want it to be terrifying.
I've been very into horror recently.
Yeah. And cosmic horror, because I call it Portuguese Bloodborne on steroids, and again with chaotic pansexuals. Lovecraft Tuga, exactly. Because I fell in love with Bloodborne, and I want something like that, but with a more bony aesthetic after the Chapel of Bones. So an entire country is just bones. So people make houses of the bones of their ancestors. And the bigger your house, the more important your family was, because you can trace your line back, and etc.
That's awesome. That's a really cool aesthetic.
Yeah. And what are you working on?
I'm also like kind of working on a couple of things, just because like 2020 has not been a great writing year for me. Like I've really just been all over the place. So I do have one project that's on submission, which fingers crossed for that one. And then I also am working on another retelling, which is going to be like a gothic horror version of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, but like set in Scotland. So
Ooh.
Yeah.
And you lived in Scotland.
I lived in Scotland for 8 years. Yeah. So
I loved Edinburgh. Edinburgh lends itself to that aesthetic very well.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, 2020. No, sorry, just that. But 2020 has not been a great year. It's the epitaph of this year's headstone.
It's so true. I don't know anyone. Well, I know a few people, but I know very few people who have been like more productive in 2020 than they have been in most years. So 2020 has not been a great production year for most people, I think.
Yeah, where were you in Scotland? Was it Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, and I lived in St. Andrews for a couple of years.
So I really loved Edinburgh when I went, and we did the ghost tours, and I love those.
So many ghost legends in Edinburgh.
I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does lend itself to a gothic horror.
It does. It really does. Like Scotland is very like, especially if you go to like the areas that have lots of ruins, like the ruined castles, like the old cathedrals and stuff. It's really
So like I want to go to Scotland when this is all over again. Because I only was in Edinburgh for a couple of days and I want to see more of it.
Yeah. Should just take the train, like from
we took the train from Lancaster because I have friends in Manchester, in Lancaster, and we stayed at Lindsay's house in Lancaster, and then we went. Oh, Dana was there too, in Lancaster. So we just took the train to Scotland, and the return ticket was £20.
Yeah, it's the rail in the UK is very expensive.
So long as you don't buy it on the day, buy it a week in advance, and then it's cheap. Buy it on the day, and it's £90.
Like compared to like if you go to like Germany or France, or I don't know how it is in Portugal with the pricing, but like if you go to Germany, like the price for the rail is so much cheaper than the UK. It's nice. In the UK,
here it's like so to go to Porto will probably be like $20.
Okay.
To go to the north. I've taken it to Evora and it's 10 euros.
Okay.
So, and then my parents pick me up, but then it's a 1 hour drive back home.
Okay.
And this was because I can take my cats on the train. I cannot take them on a bus. It's a bit more expensive now. I know it got more expensive. 25 to go to Porto. It's not bad. Though sometimes you can get flights from TAP from Lisbon to Porto and you're there in like half an hour and they're like 25 euros.
Yeah, the short haul flights are good too. Well, from our audience, do we have any more questions or?
Ask now. I've been silent forever. Yeah, but that's the bus, and I hate the bus. I cannot read on the bus. I get motion sickness. I can't do anything but listen to music on the bus. It's terrible. I can't even watch a movie. Well, if it's without subtitles, I guess I can. Come on, ask questions. We have our little Isabel. And also, I just have, I made a packet for Charis, and if you're swing by Charis, I think it's Charis is how you say the store name. It's not Charis.
It's Charis. Like
Charis! Oh my God! See, because that's the Portuguese thing. The CH is sh.
Yeah.
So I always get confused. But yeah, I'm sending some of these.
They are so cute. We're very excited.
To distribute. There are also smaller ones. I'm sending a couple of big ones, and then I have a lot of smaller ones made by my grandpa. And these were like how people, even in my grandpa's time, cork is a natural isolator of temperature. So they would just put their foot here and take it to the fields, and then it would still be warm come lunchtime. It's a natural sealant. That's the word I was looking for. So it's called the tarro. Tarro.
We use
I know. TARRO.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know native English speakers have trouble with the.
Yeah, I can't say it. I really can't.
But we have another question.
We do just have another question that just popped up. So do you want to?
Oh.
So you spoke of Bloodborne. What other games have you felt made an influence on your writing?
You know, there's Zelda, obviously, because that's how I got into English. He was playing Zelda with a dictionary.
That's amazing.
Planescape Torment was hugely influential, but some things have happened, and I'm like, with the main lead writer. But the other people who worked on it are cool, so I'm still like glad. I'm still not like too bad I got the tattoo. Like the other people who worked there were still nice. Other games that have influenced me, a lot of adventure games. I think The Longest Journey is a big one. It's an older game. And it was the first game and one of the first narratives I saw where the main character, who you thought was going to be the chosen one, was not. They were wrong. And that just floored me at the end. So it was Planescape, good old-fashioned BioWare games, the first ones. Neverwinter Nights was also a huge influence in that it got me fanfic writing. And I love me some Fire Emblem. Neverwinter Nights represent. This is my longest fanfic, 280,000 words.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
It
Do you
is like
any fiction?
I still like to relax. I think when you want to write, but you also don't want to, because it's different when you write for publication. Yeah. And you want to just write without paying any attention to anything and just do it. I love writing me some Fire Emblem fanfic. Like finishing the ones I have or whatever game I'm playing it, I'll just write like one-shot fanfic. and never publish it. I need to publish them one day. And Horizon. Recently, Horizon Zero Dawn. It's like, if you want to look at the game design, smart game design decisions and smart narrative decisions, Horizon Zero Dawn should be taught in schools. Also, world building. The world building in Horizon is phenomenal. And it has one of the best main characters, one of the best growing up / training sequences. The first 15 minutes of the game had me like crying, single tear, like, because she grows up in the montage, but it's so well done. And then she does the jump, and the dad helps her at first, and then you see her jumping, and then she's grown up, and the dad is just watching on, super proud. And I was like, my daughter, Aloy. Love it. I mean, Horizon it's such a great game, and Portal. Portal is another one where it's smart decisions, and Transistor is another one where super genius game design, and the minimal use of one single voice actor makes the whole game. It's like one guy voicing it through the Transistor. The main character doesn't speak. She lost her voice because of things. And so the entire story is presented through the second-hand narration of the Transistor, and then you're trying to puzzle it out. And the only time she gets to speak is when she types into terminals conversations with him. And the ending wrecked me. I always cry at the end of Transistor. I haven't mentioned Hades. I love Hades. I love me some Hades. Have you played it, Julia?
No, I haven't. Everyone's talking about it, though, and I'm like...
You need to. It's so queer. I love it.
See, I will. I'm in the middle of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, though, which I need to play to the end. And when I get to the end of that, which Assassin's Creed Valhalla is also very queer. So I really
everyone's thirsty for the Greek gods after Hades.
I know.
But also, you can romance Thanatos, but you can also platonically romance Dusa.
Okay.
It's just a sweet relationship. And then you can also romance Megara. Megara can also step on me. And everyone is fine with it because it's the Greek gods, and polyamory is how they do.
Yeah.
And also, Megara has a whip. And she's just like there with the whip. Come here. Like, girl. Hades is just, I love it. Like, anything Supergiant does, like, they haven't let me down yet.
I'm going to have to check it out. So many people on Twitter are talking about playing Hades, and I still haven't played it. So I will, as soon as I'm finished with Assassin's Creed.
It's super, I find it, so I was going through an anxiety problem. Playing Hades was what kept me alive, because I could just turn my brain off, and also my hands, I couldn't type, but I could still play with the controller. And playing Hades was just 2 weeks of it was my rehab after the anxiety attack that nearly killed me. Oh my God, we went long. I'm sorry, I talk a lot, everyone.
Well, I think that's all of our audience questions. But to wrap up, today you can go to the link below. I'm trying to point, but my hand is not in the photo. You can go to the link below and purchase Diana's amazing books from
and
Charis
Julia's.
And my book.
By Ruinsong as well. Look at that cover. That's behind Julia. It's so purple and beautiful. My copy still hasn't arrived, and I'm sad.
Shipping is so slow right now.
Oh my God. And my book is on back order, apparently. What's happened?
Thank you, y'all. Yeah, so please purchase A Curse of Roses and Ruinsong and Julia's other books from Charis. Just click this teal link, and we will ship it out to you, and we will ship out the special extras from Diana with Curse of Roses.
They also have curbside pickup.
Yes. So you can come, just order online and say if you want curbside pickup, and if you're in Atlanta, you can do that. We're also having every Saturday porch pop-up. So you can just come and browse safely, just wear a mask, and come check it out on the front porch. But otherwise, we're happy to ship anywhere, and in the United States, I should say, because international shipping has become prohibitive. Yeah, I'm so sorry. It really is a bummer, but it's so ridiculous right now.
And also, I'm going to say this: if you bought my book from Charis and you did pay for international shipping, it will be stuck in customs because we have like this custom tax. So anything with shipping included that passes 20 euros gets stuck in customs.
Yeah, it's a mess. And so it's a wonderful thing that we have this international literary community, because we really do have people watching our events around the world, but it's really frustrating that we're not able to send books to everybody. So we're sorry, we could, but we're at least glad that people can talk to one another on this platform, because that's pretty cool. So we really appreciate all of you. The other thing is that we are a nonprofit, and so we do accept donations in support of this work. So if people have that to give, that's wonderful. If not, that's great too. We're just glad you're here. And the last thing I want you to know is that I'll be repackaging this with captions and putting it on YouTube. So for people who prefer to be able to read captions, we'll get that up in the next couple days, and that's just YouTube.com/Charis Circle.
I'm so sorry about my accent, though. Because then you can do automatic ones.
We'll figure it out. We have humans going behind to.
Because I know closed captioning hates my accent. CD hates my accent.
The computer AI is pretty rough, no matter what accent you have. So we're too diverse and have so many beautiful voices for computers, and that's just the reality, unfortunately. But that's okay. So this was lovely. Thank you to you both. I hope that you stay happy and safe and well, and I hope that you will come party with us
next year
when it's safe to do that. And we will look forward to that.
Thank you so much for hosting us.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.